American national government. This is Dr. Patrick Stewart. Chapter 12, Congress. With this segment, the learning objectives we'll be focusing on is explaining the congressional committee system and essentially how Congress operates. So when we think about the committee system, we're thinking about Congress and what they actually do once they're in Washington, D.C. Certainly, there's a lot of constituent affairs and casework that needs to be done when they come back home, but when they're in D.C., they tend to spend most of their time in committee. Now, when we do comparisons of the House of Representatives and the Senate, we see that the committees are more important and powerful in the House than the Senate. This is due to the fact that there is a larger House membership, which means fewer committee assignments. And as a result, there is an incentive for the House of Representative members, the congresspersons, to become policy specialists, to develop the strength in specific areas. On the other hand, because senators are representing entire states and serving a broader range of constituents over a longer period of time, their incentive is to become policy generalists. So taking a look at the committee system, we see that the standing committees are powerful and permanent, and they have jurisdiction over issues and categories of legislation. As a result, the committee members become more knowledgeable than non-members about legislation and their issue areas. This expertise and this knowledge becomes an important source of power. Now, the committee members that are more interested in legislation are certainly relied on to a much greater extent than the rank and file members. So the rank and file tends to defer to the recommendations of the committee and the committee members because of their knowledge and expertise. So when we take a look at the structure and organization of the House of Representatives and the Senate, we see that there are 21 standing committees in the House, whereas there is 19 in the Senate. Now, seats on each of the standing committees are divided between the majority and the minority party using the party ratio, which in turn is based upon the electoral strength within the different bodies. Now, the party ratios in the House are more likely to favor the majority, and this is due to the fact that there are greater swings in representation based upon the districts and many more representatives, 435 to be exact. Now, this leads to the minority party complaining that there's underrepresentation on the committees, and as a result, this deprives the electorate of representation. And this makes sense because with the House of Representatives, you have elections every 2 years, and on the off years, the general public just tends not to vote. As a result, their needs, their desires probably are not being represented to as great an extent than the motivated minority that do vote and put their representatives in. Now, most standing committees have subcommittees with jurisdiction over smaller segments of policy that are addressed here, and this allows for the development of even more specialized policy expertise. Now, in our modern world, where we have many, many different areas of policy concern, certainly this policy expertise is very important. So when we take a look at this table 12.3 from the book, and this is from the 113th Congress, we see the breakdown as far as how many seats are within the different committees and the representation by the Republicans and the Democrats, as well as who has a majority seat advantage and what the ratio is. It also gives you much more information considering what is the dominant member goal for being on these seats, which is what we'll talk about later on in the lecture, so you might come back to this. Now, getting assigned to committee is possibly the first and most important thing. Now, the members of Congress request to be on a committee, and we'll talk about what committees are the most valuable ones. But as a general rule, members who want to continue serving on a committee are allowed to remain. In other words, their expertise is valued. But some committees are more desirable, and demand to be on these committees is, as a result, much higher. And as we can expect, re-election is a major consideration. especially when we see competition for a particular assignment. Now, those committees that are most valued are most obviously those that deal with taxation and spending. In other words, the House of Representatives Ways and Means Committee, the Senate's Finance Committee, and Appropriations Committees for both the House of Representatives and the Senate are highly prestigious. Although oftentimes it might be considered potentially boring work because you're dealing with numbers, but it is extremely powerful work because you hold the purse strings, which is what the two bodies deal with mostly. Now, looking at the committee chairs, which is, of course, the most powerful role on the committee chairs were chosen on the basis of their seniority within the majority party members on a committee. However, in 1995, there were House of Representative reforms that mostly ended this practice and limited committee chairs to 3 terms to make sure there wasn't a development of too much power. Now, as a result, seniority is still a factor, but so is competence. Party loyalty also is a major factor, but perhaps one of the more pernicious aspects and factors here is the ability to raise money for fellow congresspersons for them to hold their seats. So money and connections has become a very powerful factor. When we look at ranking of committees, the House rules divide the committees into 3 different categories, and they're exclusive, non-exclusive, and exempt. Now, as can be expected, the exclusive committees, because you're focusing all your efforts on that one committee, are the most desirable. Members assigned to them typically receive no other major assignments, hence the term exclusive. And we're looking at such committees as Appropriations, Energy and Commerce, Rules, and Ways and Means. These are obviously dealing with major economic or roles that have influence behind the scenes as far as developing the rules of the game and enforcing them. Now, non-exclusive committees are those that allow for members to serve on 2, and most of the committees are in this category. Now, there are exempt committees, in which case members are exempt from the 2-committee limitation, and this allows for members to serve on those in addition to their other 2 major assignments, if they get 2 major assignments. Now, ranking of committees is something that goes on inherently and perhaps intuitively with some of the members. First of all, we have the prestige committees, and these obviously are those that are highly prized because it allows members to wield tremendous power, and includes those committees that deal with taxation and spending, as we've discussed earlier. Now, the other 2 committees that are ranked are policy and constituency committees. Now, while these do have jurisdiction over important areas, the members' policy and re-election interests oftentimes determines which one is most important for them to sit on. In other words, if you are in a rural state such as Arkansas, serving on agricultural committees and natural resource committees is highly important, whereas serving on something that deals with urban issues more explicitly is probably not as important unless you're dealing with growing urban areas such as in northwest Arkansas or central Arkansas. So you have to consider the needs of your constituents and the likelihood that this will allow for you to be reelected more easily. American national government.